Now in this portion of Unit J, we'll be creating text fields. And during our work in our contact.html file, we're going to add some general text boxes for name and phone number. We're going to add a special purpose text box to collect user email addresses. We're going to add a text area along with some legends. Now you can use the input element to create many different types of fields that accept user input into your forms. When working with the input element, it's important to determine which type of input element by setting the type attribute. For a text box, for example, we'll set the type attribute to text. Now other input values create text boxes with specific semantic meanings. And we'll also be using the text area element, which creates a multi-line text area or a field that allows users to enter multiple lines of text. Now HTML5 introduces a number of additional input values that create text boxes with specific semantic meanings, and in our eText, table J-3 details the most common of those values, such as password, email, URL, search, and tel for telephone. And some user agents provide additional functionality for some of these text boxes. For instance, in an email field, newer browsers check for the common elements that all email addresses must contain and alerts the users if their entries are not valid email addresses, such as forgetting the @ symbol for an email address. So let's go ahead and get into our steps here. Go back to our contact.html and we'll look at the steps real quick we're going to complete, and then we'll work in our HTML file in our text editor. Here are the steps we're going to complete. Along with our figures that we can look at to see the code that we'll be putting in. And you can see that we have our input and text area elements nested within the associated label elements that they go along with. Alright, let's go ahead and get back to our text editor and start performing those tasks. The first step we're going to do is to, within our contact info field set here, we're going to go down to our legend line. We're going to go beneath the legend element, and we're going to enter opening and closing label tags on separate lines. Once we've created those, we're going to then insert a new line between the tags and type the label name. So let's go ahead and enter our tags. There are our label tags. We're going to go ahead and enter a line in between them. Now that we've entered our line in between our label tags, we're going to put the text name within this label element to serve as a label for the associated fields. Let's go ahead and indent over there and put that information there. So there's our name text that we have within our element. Now that we've got that one set up, we want to repeat that step to create two more label elements below the one we just created, containing the text email and phone respectively. So, and then we're going to add an additional label element beneath the legend in the additional info field set, containing the text feedback, special requests, or other information. So let's work through that now. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and add my next two for my label elements for email and phone. They'll be below each other. Now I'm going to go ahead and add a second, which would be my third one, and then I'll put in the text now. So we'll go back up here and put in our text for email. Then we'll come down to the next one and put our text in for phone. Now I've got all three of my labels created. Now next we're going to add an additional label element beneath the legend in additional info field set. So let's go ahead and go down to additional info. There we go, and we're going to go below our legend again. Go ahead and create our label elements here. And then we'll put the text in that the instructions tell us to, which will say feedback, special requests, or other information. So let's go ahead and enter that text now. Feedback, special requests, or other information. Now we have that label created. Now we're going to go ahead and nest an input element within our associated label element with our next step being that beneath our name in the first label element that we created, we're going to enter a tag for our input type of text. So let's go ahead and make sure that we use the type attribute to create a generic text box. So we'll go ahead and put that information in now beneath the text name in our first label. So we'll just scroll back up and put that in. Let's go put that in. And now we've got our nested input element created. And I indented one space too far, so I'm just going to back that up one spot. There we go. Next, let's create a second label element underneath the text email. So let's go ahead and do the same thing. Put our input code there. Go ahead and go a line below there. Let's put our input element here for email, which would be similar to the one we did for name, only we are giving it a type email. And by using the value email for the type attribute, this creates a text box and enables any special features a user agent might apply to an email field. Now we're going to repeat steps to create a text input element with the name phone and the ID phone input beneath the text phone within our third label element. So let's go ahead and go down to phone now. Enter a line. Go ahead and input our line of code there. You see that we've declared it as type text again, the name of phone and an ID of phone input. Now we're going to use our text area element, and we're going to do that is we're going to go down to beneath the label text in the additional info field set. So let's go ahead and get there. And we'll go beneath our legend here. Now we'll use our text area element, and we're going to give that an ID of feedback. We're going to name it feedback, and we're going to specify how many rows of input are visible. We're going to give that a value of 4, so 4 rows will be visible, and the columns attribute approximates how many characters in a monospace font should fit across the box. And we're going to set the column space to a value of 55. Let's go ahead and enter that now. And I spaced a little bit too far over. Actually, that looks just right, so we'll just go ahead and leave that. So now we have created a text area element nested within our associated label element of additional info. Now it's time for our favorite part. Let's save our work and then refresh our contact.html file in our browser. Now if all went well, we should see that we have our text fields associated with the labels displayed in our form. I'm going to scroll this down just a little bit before I refresh. Alright, I'll go ahead and refresh my page and see what happens. Looks like it worked. We have our text fields, our text area. So we've created our text fields as needed, and you can reference figure J-5 to make sure your work looks like mine does here. Now before we move on, I did notice that this looks a little ugly here in the additional information. We should have actually put our text area below this label. So let's go ahead and go back and fix that now. Alright, let's go ahead and remove this line. We'll delete our space there. Now we'll go right below our label information, put that line back in, and we'll save. Let's go back in and see how it looks now. Alright, fingers crossed, we'll refresh, and that looks a lot better. Now you can just type in here just to see if your information goes in. You can see that that's allowing us to test, and we'll put a name here, Billy Bob, IT guy here. Looks like our fields are working, and we'll enforce later the email requiring all of the elements. So if your form looks like this, good job. Let's move on to our next segment in Unit J.